Are you living next to Sam Altman's bunker?
Does Sam Altman even live in California these days?
Yeah. Didn't he say that he made the comment that he's got a sort of preppers thing going?
You want exposure to the Southern Cone. Peter Thiel just bought a massive place in Buenos Aires. I don't know why, but you want exposure there. That's what I'm told.
Have you got a bunker, Alex? Is there a bunker on your property?
Yeah, and that's where I'm recording from.
Oh, you're in the basement?
I cannot disclose my locations.
Okay.
All right. We're all here. The gang's all here. What are we doing?
All right, let's get going. Let's start. Welcome to People vs. Algorithms, show about detecting patterns in media, technology, culture, money, our dystopian future, which I hope we're going to touch upon a little bit. I've got some dystopian thoughts. But Troy, you're dialing in, as they say, from the Tuscan hills. You're officially a member of the leisure class.
Yeah, semi-retired, Brian.
It's good. It's like SEO meets Gilded Age kind of thing. So where are you? You're in Florence.
I'm in Florence, yeah.
Give us a travel report.
I'm here with my wife, Jillian. We came from Rome to Florence, and then we're heading down south for a wedding. My niece is getting married.
Destination wedding. Those are very in vogue.
Yeah,
and controversial.
Looking forward to it. And then my whole family's coming. My kids are all coming, and then we're all going to Rome together to hang out in Rome.
I mean, I think what listeners want to know is, Brian was in Morocco last week. Now you're in Florence. How do you guys afford this on a podcaster's salary?
I like how Alex is sneakily because this is like the second time he's taken shots. I like how you're coming out of your shell.
He does that, and then he drops the my net worth is more than yours. Yeah, he does.
That's what I've noticed. It's good that you should be comfortable with who you are.
Right, and you should be a guest on all.
Start businesses. No, I was just saying. I think it's more like having no kids. Your kids you don't have kids when you're down in the room. Having a young child means you're bound to the school holidays, which is the worst time to travel.
Yeah,
that's
like, it's literally
you shouldn't avoid having children at 50, Alex.
Well, I had them at 40.
I met one guy at a wedding. He did the power move last week in London and part of my travels.
Oh wow, in London.
Which I'm sorry I didn't ask for permission. I'm not like what am I allowed to do? Am I allowed to?
You're allowed to do it.
What am I allowed? How about the Ultima? Is the Ultima okay?
This is turning into a lifestyle into a lifestyle podcast. So I'm just asking how you.
All right, Alex is now the one in the bad mood. Okay.
Well, they haven't chased the Americans out of Florence, because if they did, it would collapse. There are so many Americans here; it's not even funny.
Well, that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in these places as they're basically activations at the end of the day. They're not, I personally like traveling to places that still have some kind of modern economic function. You know, you don't want to go to somewhere like Dubrovnik. I mean, it's fine like seeing or something, but it's Disneyland.
Shots fired at Dubrovnik.
Have you been?
No, for the same reasons you're mentioning. You say it's just a vacation town, right? Or it's just like a museum town, basically, at this stage.
Well, I mean, that's Europe in large part.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the Italians, though, are great hosts. It's a really nice place. If you have to go to one of those towns, it's a great place to visit.
I mean, they still have industry. Like Florence is
for sure. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that when we talk about Ferrari.
Yeah. Because I'm listening. Let's get into it right now. I'm listening to the acquired Ferrari episode. And it's pretty fascinating. I didn't really know a lot about Ferrari, but one of the things that really stood out to me was they began as a racing team, not as the car company. So like the racing team came before the actual business. And I feel like a lot of businesses are this. Like what becomes the actual business is not what the business was. You see it, well, obviously across like technology, like all the time. Like, I mean, Anthropic did not start off as like a coding, like the coding has like exploded their business. I mean, they're up to 50 billion.
Do you know how many cars Ferrari's made in lifetime? 330,000.
Yeah, not that many.
Do you know how many GM sells a year? 6.8 million.
And Ferrari is valued far higher than Ford,
Well,
et cetera.
yeah, because Ferrari is now trading at like luxury good multiples, right? Like LVMH or something like that, because it's a scarcity product. The thing is, like, I mean, I see a lot of expensive cars here, but I realize that I don't know if sports cars are cool here. Maybe you might see them more in Miami. I don't really see Ferraris here.
I think in Miami is probably more the Lambo. Like, because I feel like Lambo is like the sort of lower rent. I think Ferrari is still.
Well,
this is
it's
more
the
your
gauche.
field than my field.
It's the gauche.
I got an Altima.
Ferrari, yeah.
It's like the crystal of cars.
Yeah.
But I do think it does tell a good story of our time about the value of scarcity. It's gone away in media, and it's been utterly disastrous. And I think in some ways, I was listening to a podcast that this is going to come back, because I was listening to a Derek Thompson podcast around this. And, you know, they were making the point that just by something being human made, it makes it like automatically scarce. And that should lead to actually increased value just because it was made by human beings. You see this all the time in these luxury sectors that are more about like craftsmanship. And I feel like one of the things that came out of this Acquired episode was that Italian luxury is different than French luxury, and French luxury is all about the mystique and tying it to this mythical past. And Italian has that, but they didn't have they had a different type of history, and it's more built around craftsmanship, right? Like, and just by the nature of it being hand stitched, that makes it more valuable, even if you could do the same thing in a factory somewhere in China. That's my hopeful take.
No, it is that. I mean, I think like as humans, even before I would have told you, like, I would have shown you two cups, right? One was an IKEA one and one was a handmade one. And you would have valued the handmade one more, even if they looked identical, right? I think everybody would. Does it make sense to you? I think there's like some sort of like innate belief that there's more value when more effort is put into something.
And I think this runs headlong into a lot of the things that are preached from tech, because tech is all about removing friction. It's all about, optimization. And optimization, we're going to talk about this with Forditis, is really in opposition to human flourishing in most times, right? It just is. Mm-hmm. And
but before we leave the Ferrari thing, I would just sort of postulate that it is one of the values underneath of the brand and the Ferrari mythology are so great. They're so interesting, and because it's extreme passion, it's danger, it's like obsession, and in the end, it's glory. And it's really fundamentally about the racing brand. That's really, they sold cars so they could race.
Wow, so that was the mythology.
Yeah, I mean, and that's all that matters. And so it's like, where do you see, there are just so, I don't know, in the automotive space, how many fan brands there are. And Ferrari is the penultimate fan brand.
I mean, Enzo Ferrari, his famous thing that he said was that we will always sell one less than there is demand for, at least one car fewer than there is demand for.
That's good insight.
Well, the other cool thing about Ferrari is that it went from the founder, it floundered, the founder left, it floundered in the 80s, and it was resuscitated by this guy Luca in the in late 90s, 2000s when it started its ascent. So
I didn't get to that part. Is that like the bastard son? Or no?
It's more than the podcast brand, but people know this. He's a remarkable. The car people know this.
Yeah. I mean, some car people know this. You're speaking to us from a room that's made out of gold. Sure. I didn't know this. However, have you seen the new Ferrari Luce that's been co-designed with Johnny Ive?
I have seen it, and I've seen the interface, which is very cool. I don't know if I've seen the car. I've seen the interface, Alex.
We've only seen the interface. The thing that's infuriating is that this car is full of buttons, full of physical buttons. So Johnny Ive, when he designs something for Ferrari, will put buttons on things. But like when he designs something that we use every day, we try to remove all the buttons.
Would you want a trackpad? I hate the disappearing scroll bar is something that has challenged me. I don't know if that's like me
that
getting
ages
old.
you, but yes, you can turn it back on.
I know, but it shouldn't be default off. It drives me nuts.
Isn't it crazy that hardware buttons are becoming a sign of luxury? The fact that you have something to press.
Hey.
And a giant touchscreen is cheap.
I notice I am part of the wired headphone counter revolution.
Yeah, it's very Gen Z.
I know.
Yeah, Brian's
Gen
wearing
Z
his
coded.
old AirPod headphones with his little
Earpods.
dangy
They're called
mic.
earpods.
Earpods, yeah, sorry.
Do you have more on Ferrari? You seem like you did some like Wikipedia, Troy.
I did some quick research on it.
I could tell.
Well, no, but it's like it's a cool story, and I've watched like Ferrari documentaries. It's an interesting brand.
Okay, yeah.
Super.
And
Why
look,
not get into a Ferrari? Have you ever tried sitting in a Ferrari? I mean, you're different.
Yeah,
You guys are different. form
I've had
factor,
one
man.
only. I had one for a weekend once. They're very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
you know what's
For
comfortable?
me,
A 4-door Altima. There's no squeezing in through the window or any of that shit.
Brian, I've been posting car pictures to PVA Notes for you to shop off of. You probably noticed that little plastic Fiat
I think
thing.
you're mocking my taste in cars, but
half
if
of what I
it's
say to you is
genuine-
mocking. Yeah.
If it's genuine, I appreciate that. All right, let's transition from Ferrari into tech. Anthropic is definitively in the lead right now. They're on this $50 billion run rate. They account for things a little bit differently than
That's a lot of money, man.
OpenAI.
That's crazy.
they
So
were making
here's-
no money in the beginning of 2023, right? No money.
That's
They
a
went from
lot of
So they
money.
went from no money in 2023 to this $50 billion run rate, all while being like acting as if they're like reluctant capitalists. This is the path I am going down. Okay.
Yeah, and I've noticed.
I'm a little bit
Like
behind
just-
on it. That also reminds me of my man, Enzo Ferrari. You know, at 49, he had not sold one car. So there is hope for all of you who are getting a late start. Ferrari
Yeah,
had
man.
not sold a single car when he was 49. But Anthropic is, I was struck on the All In podcast that David Sachs, who has been very anti-Anthropic, was then all of a sudden claiming that they're like a monopolist and that they are going to be the most valuable company in the world soon. I think this is total hyperbole. They were going to be worth more than the rest of the Mag 7 combined in short order.
I think you can reliably dismiss any of David Sachs's takes at this point. But
Well, I don't know. I think you have to like I mean, I don't know. I'm not ready to just
no, you're not
offhandedly
ready to
dismiss
say
anyone.
goodbye.
No, I just don't like to dismiss anyone just because
I've gotten.
I'd rather evaluate it on the merits.
I have gotten
Alex
these
is
guys out of my life.
always he's always nursed a sort of visceral, deep hate for David Sachs. He doesn't. There's nothing about David Sachs Alex likes.
Is that because you hate SaaS? What do you have against SaaS?
No, I don't hate SaaS. I don't hate anyone. It's just I find that this
You
entire
hate product
this-
managers.
No, I don't hate them. I just find them superfluous.
Same.
In many cases,
Yeah, that's
God.
funny.
I'm
All right,
constantly
keep us
surrounded.
going on our path. Our
All right, so
beautiful path.
Anthropic. So what are we to draw from Anthropic, quote unquote, winning in this, right? Like, because I'm struck by the fact that they have gotten to the lead by making a couple of like, big decisions that like, now it seems obvious. But one was just simply like focus. They focused far more than OpenAI. This is a general purpose technology that could be applied to all kinds of different areas. And I think that OpenAI didn't read the Peanut Butter Manifesto. Do you remember the Peanut Butter Manifesto? Brad Garlinghouse, back when Yahoo was beginning
remind
its
us. What is that?
descent into irrelevance before it's been revived by by Jim Lanzone. But Brad Garlinghouse wrote the Peanut Butter Manifesto in like 2007. And he was an executive at Yahoo at the time. And he said, we are in danger of, we are spreading ourselves so thin. We are like a slice of bread with peanut butter that we're smearing to the edges. And it just leads to a sort of thin layer. And you saw that, I think, with OpenAI. Even with the massive amounts of capital that they had, they were talking about doing a social network. They started, remember he was talking about like erotic chats coming to ChatGPT? I don't know. Troy, are they on there? get back to us
I
on
think
that.
it's
But like,
it's focus, but it's more than that because they made good products.
well, yeah, that was obviously you have to execute.
They made a good product, and I think that Dario did a lot of useful evangelism, and I think that they're sinister marketers. I mean, the most recently the Mythos thing is maybe a cautionary step from them to say be careful with our models. They can do bad things to cybersecurity people, but it was a great way to say that our models are the most powerful. They're good marketers. They've really pried their way into our psyche.
Yeah, I think it goes beyond that. I mean, the Mythos thing, we can
Are we doing
get back
Mythos?
to,
We're not
but
doing Mythos?
the Mythos thing is true, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how nefarious they're being. Most of the stuff that they're saying is backed, by data. The Firefox company managed to, I think, ship 220 bug fixes by using Mythos, or a mixture of cloud things. And last year they had 40 or something like that, and they're paying rewards to people. So it's open source. So these things are transformational. I agree with you. Like, focus is part of it. It's a great product. They're good marketers. I think it's easy to be a good marketer when your product is so good. But don't we think that the real issue is that once again somebody tried to move into a consumer space that had dominant players, and consumers is hard. And I think it's very hard to focus when you're targeting a consumer. You have to do everything. You have to start making a video thing and a free tier and advertising and and fucking sex bots or whatever you need, right? And I think the excitement there was that they could beat Google. I was excited about the fact that there was somebody that could put a dent into Google. They thought they could beat Google, and turns out you can't beat Google. And what Anthropic did with Claude is they went entirely to the enterprise, which is where all the money is. Consumers don't have money.
Well, even more than that, in the enterprise, you can have this doomer message, right? Like, right or wrong, it's interesting to me where that is at an advantageous positioning when you're selling into the enterprise, and it's disastrous on the consumer side. And we're kind of left with that situation. I don't know if it's necessarily caused by Anthropic, right? Where AI is I think the biggest problem is their brand perception issue. I saw this video of a college graduation where the speaker was making this, anodyne statement about how it's a new industrial revolution, and all the kids were booing.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That is a major problem. It's not a problem when you're selling to the boss class, because the boss class is like, oh, wait, you're going to replace people? Absolutely. That's great.
It is important to remember that Anthropic did the most earnestly chase the sort of human dimension of AI development, and also became, you remember the hats that they had, Brian?
Thinking.
Yeah. And then they came out, hard against, against what people perceive were anti-human steps by the Department of War, right? Like, around using AI to target people autonomously and around privacy. I think that in a lot of people's mind made them the kind of moral alternative to OpenAI.
Right, but at what cost? Because the entire category, you can argue, is dealing with, probably the biggest threats to AI are energy use, right? But then it's political backlash. And we're seeing that with the backlash against data centers, with AI being booed.
I don't know. Being booed, though, it's like, what does it mean that, you can boo all you want. It's coming, and you're booing it. But by the way, you just wrote an essay with it. I'm just saying, there is always a kind of relentless march of technology. It's hard to resist. I think that there's a little period now where you're going to see, reaction from, kids on campuses, that are anti-AI. And I think it's meaningless.
I actually think that's really dangerous behavior. Like it is not meaningless. I think the response to AI, but from consumer, hasn't been what like on paper should have been a revolution. We haven't seen like this big, cultural and creative and artistic explosion that a technology that literally allows you to do anything should have allowed. People dislike it. People are protesting the building of data centers, right? Including the thing that's happening with Kevin O'Leary.
I get the data, Alex. I just don't believe
the CEO.
Well, no.
And AI.
Okay, so I think like there's two ways to look at it. One is the backlash is real.
It's not a
backlash.
It's not a standard
is
reaction.
real.
It wasn't like that for the internet.
Demi Moore in
real.
in the real Can, not the advertising one, had said some pretty middle of the road things about AI, saying that we need to find ways to work with AI. Againstness breeds againstness. AI is here. So to fight it is to fight the battle that we will lose. Man, I saw this and there's a massive backlash to that, because the cultural elites do not like this and it is filtering down. And I'm reminded of the Industrial Revolution, Troy, because as I slog through this capitalism book, the workers were very hesitant and were not happy with the industrial process.
I get it. I'm just saying it still happened.
I understand that. You know what we both independently came across this week that I want to discuss?
Forditis. Yes.
So Forditis was the feeling that when you worked on an assembly line, you were basically taking what used to be a craft and where the human was using tools to create things. And then soon the machine was running things and the human was being used by the machine. Like Henry Ford got the assembly line going because then you didn't have to move around and then you started doing repetitive tasks. And Forditis was the term that was used by the workers that on its surface, it was about just coming home and exhausted and just feeling empty. And it was really about the loss of autonomy and agency that they felt and meaning in their work. And I think a lot of these concerns right now are kind of an updated version of this. Perhaps we could even call it Clauditis. Discuss.
Okay. Well, I want to take the other side of it. And I guess that it's important to kind of step back and for me to, what I was articulating is I hear repeatedly that public sentiment around AI is extremely negative. You highlighted the fact that young people are booing. Fine. I think there's going to be a violent transition to a new kind of society. And I think it's going to be incredibly uncomfortable and a lot of people are going to be displaced. And I think
there will be a counter reaction in any violent transformation to society.
There will be, correct. Optimistically, I think that it will create all kinds of new types of human endeavor. And I think it'll take 10 years, but we'll look back and say that it was a very positive change in society if we're not all dead.
Very nice. I mean, part of it is the messaging, right? And the messaging that these
but I don't know about that, Alex, because the all-in guys will tell you that. They're like, if only, we had better ambassadors for this movement.
Get a mascot. Okay, great.
No. I mean,
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I think I said part of it is, and I do feel like when you're told, hey, best case scenario, it takes your job. Worst case scenario, it fucking kills us all, right? It's hard to align to it.
Right. So what would your messaging be, Alex?
I mean, my messaging would be not say, look, it can create music because, music is a pain in the ass. Look, it can replace all art. Look at this stuff, right? The examples, I think, and the marketing, including from Apple at the time, has been terrible, including forgot to do something for Mother's Day, write this message if you're lazy fucking. So much of it is about replacing the things that people find beautiful in life, right? And then being told that it will replace your job and it will potentially destroy the world, but it's all worth it. when you're looking at the enterprise, the marketing is, oh, here, this is useful. This is useful. This can create more software. This can check the bugs. This can do all this other stuff. When the consumer messaging has been terrible, I'd say it's additive, because on top of that, kids that are growing up right now are seeing a massive shift in both like what could be their livelihood, the art that they consume. They don't know if on Spotify it's going to be like some sort of made up AI artist that some dude in Bangladesh popped up in 30 seconds. That's number one, being fed to them on their feeds. And nobody knows what's real anymore. It's like not a good feeling on the consumer side.
Yeah.
You know, and because these people work in the enterprise, they don't get it. Why don't you get it? Why don't you love this? And, you know, I think most people of a certain age wish it never happened.
A couple anecdotes that I came across that I think are instructive in this. One is that like companies are trying to force this down all workers' throats, and the workers are not dumb. They're training the machines to replace them, and that's the reality. And that's where I think the Clauditis really comes in. Like, it's really insulting. Amazon is doing this. You know, they've got quotas for how much you need to use AI. So apparently there are developers that are just burning tokens to hit their quota. And we will see acts of sabotage, I believe. This happened in the Industrial Revolution. It will happen again here. When I talk with publishers, one of the underlying frustrations that they have is that a lot of their AI tools are treated with complete suspicion, to the point where they think that they are sabotaging this, that they'll wave around hallucinations and whatnot because they don't want to use these tools, because they don't trust that these tools are actually tools of flourishing, that they're tools of coercion to eventually replace them. And the reality is, so much money has gone into this over the TAM of the global workforce is very large. If you replace 15% of global labor with machines, because people don't want to hire workers, they want work. That's a pretty big market. So you're just running into a thing where I don't think that, you know, an AI bear mascot is going to do the trick. I did think one other point on this was, I don't know if you saw Mira Murati's Thinking Machines finally came out with some glimpse of what they're building. One of the things I was struck with the videos is, and I thought it was a small but very smart thing, was that they put their like developers like out in front with the videos. And they're like awkward, like tech nerd guys and girls. And I thought that was really smart, because AI does have a messaging problem. When Sam Altman is out there extolling AI, no wonder people are distrustful. I don't think
Sam
Dario
puts the nerds on the camera all the time. Okay, he does the same thing. The underlying message in the Thinking Machines announcement is that this is a partner to human beings. This is ambient technology that sits alongside you and helps human beings in a collaborative way. And I think that's ultimately what AI does extremely well. It's that's going to make it, you know, I think not just inevitable, but like incredibly empowering. Because if you use it a lot, as I do, it makes you just infinitely more capable. And that feeling of empowerment is what you need to tap into with these messages, because it's mighty. It's really crazy what you can do with it. And I think those demos were pretty interesting. It does suggest that I thought Alex would like them because it's interface technology. It's a shift in interface. It's not a chatbot. It's a companion. And as such, it's very different. So it's a kind of shift in interface that we could have never had before. It's very, very different than you ask, it responds. It's way more sort of subtle and collaborative and ambient. It's a really, really cool idea. Did you see that? It tells you to stop slouching.
It also interrupts.
Only if you ask it to interrupt.
I use AI every day. I appreciate its value. I would think that if I was maybe 19 right now, I don't know if I would be into it or not, but we're talking to a generation that already feels like it missed out not growing up in the 90s and having malls and having to pick up the phone and going out to seeing each other. Instead, you see, a bunch of, young people hanging around and everybody's staring at their phone. People wish Instagram didn't exist. Kids are happier when phones are removed from school. And what we're telling them on top of that is not only are we going to like shove more technology into your face, but we're also going to make it do all the things that are really amazing to have as humans. I don't know, man. I think this runs deep. It runs deep. I don't think the Industrial Revolution was communicated every day, 24/7 on social media platforms. So people definitely felt it. But here, people are seeing it coming and they don't like it. People are activating. Like, the people that are coming to like fight Kevin O'Leary's data center or whatever is impressive, and
anti-technology populism is here. It is going to be a major political force,
bigger than ever.
It is the obvious lane for Democrats to go down. Democrats should expand their definition of being on the side of the workers. I think we're in a blip right now where Trump is a singular character and they can focus on the workers against the oligarchs. It's a very us versus them message, and it's sitting there for them.
Do we think that the first, minting the first trillionaire in tech is going to do well? Do we think that, parading all these people, any of them are likable? Tech has a terrible image right now. That doesn't mean people don't use it. People don't like social media. They use it. People don't like a lot of things that they use every day, right? It's just, you can't exist in the world without cheating on your exams with, ChatGPT.
Look, a lot of people went streaming into the Ford factories too, right? We went streaming into like the attention factories. And I think we have our own, maybe I'm trying to force fit this Forditis thing. I think we have our own Forditis. Like you could say, well, look, Henry Ford provided like all these social services. He paid them a living wage. He was like very forward thinking and saying, hey, we need to create our customer base. Very good. Henry Ford had a lot of bad parts also. Let's be real.
Yes.
That wasn't enough to get around this loss of like agency. And I think what you're hitting at is a larger cultural thing where particularly younger people feel that technology has taken away a form of their agency. And agency is what makes us human to some degree.
Yes. And it's been blow after blow, right? Like I think crypto, coming out of the pandemic, these are people that grew up in the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, hey, there might be no jobs, but there's crypto. Crypto is, a way for you to get out. And a ton of young people invested in crypto, right? And all of that fell apart.
What if it didn't break the way you think it breaks? And I think that's what's interesting. There's a lot of things we have to consider that are disconnected from these shifts in technology. Now, if you associate, advances in AI with the rise of the oligarch class, which I think you could do, right? Because in some ways, it concentrates wealth and power in the hands of few. And so that's a huge issue. But I think the bigger issue where young people feel completely shafted has nothing to do with any of this. It has to do with the fact that they can't buy houses. It has to do with like cost of living has made a kind of lifestyle that they associate with success unachievable. And that's like, those are policy mistakes. Those are not AI issues. Those are not technology issues. They're very, they're no, yeah. Well, no, they're NIMBY issues. They're bureaucratic issues. They're problems that we can't build enough houses to increase supply and bring prices down. They're
oh my
even
God,
broader.
You sound like Ezra Klein.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Shame.
What are you becoming a policy wonk? That's not our lane.
Guys, I'm just trying to break it down. Like, I think these knee-jerk reactions, like, I do think that the generation is getting shafted, is real. I have millennial and Gen Z children. I see it every day. Okay.
I don't think that can be the entire issue, because even part of this generation, anybody who bought a house before the pandemic or had a house, given to them by their parents or helped with or whatever, there's actually a large subset of young homeowners who are doing great because they said, like, I bought this for 1.2 million and now it's worth 2.8 million, right? So these people are still upset with AI. Like, I don't think that there's a blanket like generational thing.
I don't
every one
think-
of this generation comes
I
by a
don't
house.
know what you're saying when you say these people are upset with AI. I don't think you even know any of these people. I think you're literally full of shit. To be honest with you, I think you're reading some stuff and you're making connections and you're trying to kind of fill out this theory of
every
yours.
survey every consumer
You don't even read
sentiment
the surveys,
survey,
brother. You don't.
No, I do actually.
Listen,
no.
Every
I-
consumer sentiment survey that we're reading, it shows that like sentiment around AI is negative. I work in an industry that has been technology forward. The video gaming industry has been the first to adopt technologies. Every single advance that has happened so far, right? Do you know the one that is being fully rejected, down to the fact that some games, they found out they used localization AIs to translate some words and they get review bombed, right? You feel it. It's real. It's literally real.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't buy it. And I think there's a couple of things that we could argue here. And one of them is, do I think that sort of Bernie Sanders-esque no data center policies is going to win the election? I don't. I think some people will get behind it. And I think that a growth agenda will actually steamroll it. And I really don't think it's going to drive victory in the next election. I don't. Because I don't think the country in America, people that are against progress ever win. And I think at the same time, we're going through this really fundamental shift. And I say it to my kids all the time. It used to be that you picked a job and you worked at it and you were kind of rewarded and you moved up the ladder and there was a kind of symbiotic relationship between you and your employer that kind of sustained a long-term arrangement. And now you're on your own. It's free agent nation. And I think I think there's going to be a complete restructuring of how we think about making a living. And a lot of it, by the way, is going to be powered by tools and technology, most importantly, AI. So to group everything together, and say oligarchs, AI, social media, social unrest, to me, we need to work a little harder to figure out what's really going on.
I think that when you're 19 years old and you're being told that the jobs of the future are going to be replaced by AI, you can't afford anything, and you're glued to your phone watching, a billionaire having a foam party on his yacht, that you're saying, man, you know what? I really wish the Democrats allowed us to build more housing. Yeah. That is the problem.
I appreciate your policy wonkery,
insanity.
Troy.
Go work for the New York Times, Troy.
The reality is the low information voter is your neighbor, and that's who elects our officials. And narratives always trump policy, and the narrative is always us versus them. This is why Trump won, and the obvious lane for Democrats and for pushing back against Trumpism is to reframe the us versus them, because the contradictions within the MAGA coalition are that they are trying to meld, and it's only through the personality of Donald Trump, trying to meld the oligarch class with the working class voters by using wedge social issues. People are gonna see through that.
It's gonna turn from it's culture wars transforming themselves into class wars, right? And I don't actually understand why
Troy's dealing with a class war over there with his little music in the background and Florence.
Yeah, can you tell your piano player to stop playing?
Alex is talking about the pitchforks theme being picked up, and Troy has little soft music in his golden room in Italy.
Hold on one second.
Good luck, brother. Good luck. You're going to be barricaded in your sauna soon.
Oh, it's going to clip so well.
Is it getting hot in there?
Tell them to bring a little bit more ice for you.
Yeah, they don't do ice. He's in Italy, man. There's no ice. Ice water is an American thing. Europeans think that stuff is bad for you, right?
I know, that's a generalization. We use ice in Europe.
That's because you don't have refrigerators, right? Or you don't have the energy to run refrigerators.
Can you hear the music still?
Yeah, we can hear some Italian people singing. Are they serenading you?
I like Italian
is
pop
it-
music.
Yeah.
Are they close the windows if they're revolting outside your windows? Just tell them to tell them to ask their politicians to build more housing.
You know, Agnelli, just to bring it back to Forditis, Agnelli was like obsessed with, he was in Turin, like, you know, starting Fiat and whatnot. He was obsessed with Henry Ford. He came over and just like, and this was in the like early 1900s. So going to like Detroit from Turin, that wasn't just like getting a connection. Like I think he might die during that journey, and he made it like several times because he was obsessed with bringing that back to Italy. Immediately when he brought it back, the Italian workers were like, hell no. They violently resisted. So yeah, Troy.
The other thing is that like even within the enterprise, a lot of workers are finding that, you know, the kind of Forditis version of the moment, which is the AI kind of delusion, is that CEOs are cutting jobs and asking people to just use AI and it will solve things. And most people are saying that it doesn't work like that.
All right, let's put a pin in that, as they say, because I want to, AB's here and I want to get to the BuzzFeed deal. But a couple quick like media notes. One is I've come around to Ryan Cohen as an information space creature, because I kind of get, and I didn't really know this guy really well, but he's using pure narrative and he's using populism in retail to take on eBay. And it's pure narrative and it's pure us versus
Who is
them.
Ryan Cohen?
Ryan Cohen is the Chewy guy. He started Chewy, sold it, big win. And then he went into GameStop and he's become one of these meme stock things. Now, the meme stock phenomenon, I didn't really get it. I thought it was just a weird side thing. But I think it's kind of like Gamergate, and that it's way more important than it was. And you're seeing this populism go in with all of these retail investors that if he can pull this off, I think we're seeing yet again how powerful quote unquote media is, even if it doesn't monetize very well.
Is it happening, AB? I mean, have you
media.
guys seen that CNBC Ryan Cohen
It's
interview?
funny to
It's
watch,
a
right?
hoot.
Right. And I thought he stepped in it. And then, you know, we talked about this last week a little bit, AB, so join in. But like, actually, I'm starting to come around to this being part of like his shtick. You know, he's out there saying that we got to put eBay on Ozempic, and AI is the perfect wedge for saying we're going to Elon Musk this company. If you can cut 75% of the workers at Twitter and it still works, what can you do at eBay? Take out 75% there. And it's probably a pretty compelling message. AB?
I mean, we talked about this last week, but I mean, he is putting out some fun information. Like he showed this slide from 2020 to 2025. All the important business metrics at eBay are going down like 10 to 20%. So active buyers are down 20%, GMVs down 10%. And the only thing that's up is the operating expenses, 27%, and then how much the CEO got paid. So I think that when we got into it last week, the messaging is fine. And whenever you're doing an activist campaign, sort of what you talk about in public is helpful because it can push the board on the other side to make a decision in your favor. I think what I was pointing out is like the timing is all off. So he doesn't have that many tools to affect the change that he wants.
I mean, he doesn't have the money, right? For one.
I mean, getting the money is one thing, but it's more about timing of like, they can basically just keep telling him no until next year.
So you go on to Kalshi, Polymarket, whatever, like what are the odds that he's able to pull this off? Because what I'm mostly interested in is how he's doing it, right? And whether this is a new form of activist investing that we will end up seeing become far more popular. Look, I didn't really understand why Bill Ackman was so obsessed with X and whatnot, but it became very clear, like these guys know how powerful media is. I mean, that's why the venture capitalists spend all this freaking time, I assume, doing podcast after podcast after podcast. And so is
part
this
of it is
leverage?
ego. It's nice being heard.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think it's purely ego. Like
Any activist campaign has like a really strong PR strategy. The PR firms that actually work in this space get a fee based on success. So when we've done activist campaigns in the past, you have your whole strategy planned out of like, you're going to go on Jim Cramer and talk about the deal. This is not new. He was able to actually, for GameStop, when it was a meme stock, when the stock ran up, they did additional stock issuances and were able to collect like $1 billion in cash. So he benefited then. So this whole strategy isn't new. I think can
I push back a little bit here? Isn't it new a little bit in that like, he's putting himself forward as a character with a constituency. So like normally an activist investor would go through intermediaries in order to, and this is like the go direct playbook of, I'm coming with my own constituency. Like he's got like, just like Alex has his Alexistas, he's got like, Ryan Cohen fans, right? Isn't that different in some ways?
It's a very Elon Musk strategy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, so you're saying it's not the company to company and it's him, but a lot of the same messaging is true when people were using activist campaigns like Elliot to clean up companies. They would post the presentations on their websites and stuff. So sure, there's more of like a Trump channel right now where he's going direct and tweeting these things out. But a lot of this is always, you're basically trying to convince people that don't want to do something to do something and sort of ratcheting up the pressure and telling the public how shitty they're running their business.
Right. But I think the pressure, because the public is kind of this broader kind of internet heavy audience, I think it's also a much more vibes based audience. It's maybe not as sophisticated as an activist investor going to the shareholders, right? Like what they were trying to do at Disney or whatever. This feels very much like trying to build a populist movement around something. Yeah. I can tell you that like
you're not trying to convince like Vanguard.
A lot of Ryan Cohen
the way this whole market works
didn't give a shit about eBay until 2 weeks ago. They didn't even think about eBay.
Yeah. So the way that this whole market works, because most people, yes, I'm sure GameStop has a higher percentage and eBay does of individual investors. Most of what's done on a corporate governance level when there's a vote, say you hold something in an index fund, is there are these proxy firms. There's like two main ones that review all the things that are coming up to vote and typically side with the company. So even when a company has 10 or 20% individual investors, you're trying to sway those proxy firms in your favor. And the point that I think he's trying to make is like shareholder value will increase.
Right.
I appreciate like the constituency that you think he's trying to affect just doesn't have that much power when it comes to voting.
Yeah. And just to put that on Kalshi, it is, who's not yet a sponsor, but we can work on that. Will GameStop acquire eBay this year? Even in this audience, it is 19.9%. So it is a long shot bid still, which kind of stinks for my narrative.
It's 17% on all market. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll call it in between. Let's talk about BuzzFeed real quick. I mean,
for the last time,
Chelsea Peretti's brother is giving up the CEO job. Byron Allen, stand-up comedian. He's got a bunch of different media assets. He's got a block on late night. First of all, give us a background on Allen Media and then just the logic on this deal.
So Byron, he's put forward a couple different public offers to try to buy like BET and a couple of other multi-billion-dollar assets. What he actually has, what's interesting is he's actually on the syndicated market, he's going to take over the Colbert slot with his own comedian show. So he'll be appearing nightly on most people's TV at like 11 o'clock. But he's just aggregated a bunch of local TV stations. He did that probably starting like 10 years ago. I mean, local TV used to be a good thing to buy, but that market is under pressure right now for a variety of different reasons. But that's like his main asset, is owning a bunch of local TV stations.
I mean, they still sop up a ton of political advertising spending. Where does this, it can't all go to like,
yeah, but the big thing, where they're under pressure is they get paid by all the distributors to carry the signal, and the distributors, because of there's been a lot of consolidation there, are continuing to push down those fees. And then every local TV station that Byron owns has to pay an affiliate fee back to CBS, ABC, NBC. And so those fees keep going up. So when this whole racket started, it was like this new line of profitability for TV stations that started like 20 years ago, and it slowly got, the margins there have gotten compressed.
Okay, so what's the logic of this deal? Why? I mean, is this better than going to the glue factory? Is it like, compare it to like, because on the other side of the ledger, Vox Media is being dismantled. And it seems like a pretty good outcome for Vox Media, for those of us who do not like to see these assets go to the glue factory necessarily, in that at least the podcast network, the New York Magazine assets are going to James Murdoch, Lupus Systems. I think he's got I like a billionaire with a chip on its shoulder.
So BuzzFeed went public in 2021 with $1 billion market cap. That soon came down. At the time, they were doing about 30 million of EBITDA. They thought they would get to 100 million in 2 years. That obviously didn't happen. Since they went public, they sold Complex for 100 million and then Hot Ones for roughly like 80 to 100 million. Where they've struggled recently, the revenue hasn't gone down that much. They have a cost problem, right? So last year they did about 10 million of EBITDA, and what Jonah was running into is he couldn't service the debt. So even though he was selling off these different assets, he just couldn't pay down the debt quick enough. So they were about to miss one of the payments to the lenders. This deal that Byron did is like hyper creative. So he gave them $20 million in cash. And then for the rest of the stock that he got, he created a promissory note. The only security of that loan basically is the stock that he got. So if he decides that he doesn't want to pay the other 100 million, he just forfeits the stock. So this deal values BuzzFeed at 250 million. Jonah converted his super voting stock to the normal Class A stock. Basically, they talk about all these different ways they're going to use the content. They're going to create fast channels. I think the main thing is just cutting costs.
They'll talk about synergies and streaming, but I was doing the scissors because it's going to be.
If this had like normal margins, it should be doing 30 million of EBITDA. But I think this is one that should probably have gone through a Chapter 11. For whatever reason, they didn't want to do that. And so Byron came in and offered this unique structure where he's it's like loan to own.
You know what I think is interesting, Brian,
This is
about
great.
this is obviously for a relatively small amount of money, you get a going concern, you get a brand, however challenged that brand is, and you get all their social media accounts. So you get a bunch of distribution, you get a brand. And then you can get the debtor out of the way and aggressively go after costs. But the question to me is, what is the post-website internet? And how is Byron and Jonah, how are they going to get there more quickly than, being kind of trapped by the legacy that is BuzzFeed? And remember, by the way, BuzzFeed is a company that we should admire for, I think pioneering a lot of things that, were the hallmarks of that era, that scaled media era, right? Whether it was viral content, they were really good at video, they created good food content, they built a really, robust content platform, all the things. So, what does the next thing look like? Is it like creator media? Is it streaming media? It's obviously video first. Is it, AI driven? And I think they're going to take a swing at getting there, whether that means, they talk about a YouTube competitor. That seems, far-fetched to me.
That's being kind.
Yeah.
When people say shit like this, I'm like,
I mean, he's a comedian, so I assume that was a joke.
Yeah, but
I get it. I was being nice, Alex. Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't know. Now I've gone back. I don't like Vacation Troy. It's a little too.
So, but like, if you had to do it all over again, what would you build? And that's what they're going to try to build.
Well,
Jonah's going to go over to the AI factory. He's going to try to make video making machines.
He's
going to try to make little kind of viral AI things.
I don't know. People don't want that shit. We're not like the AI video viral making machine. You're going to mass create stuff. At some point, like that stuff's going to have zero value. You're just going to be burning tokens to create shit that people don't want to watch. Like these are not strategies. And then on top of that, like honestly, until I read the run of show yesterday, I forgot that BuzzFeed. I was surprised. I was like, when a celebrity dies and you're like, oh, they were still alive.
Yeah, no, it's Bob.
That's how I felt. I was like,
it.
what? Are we still doing that? and it's what are they gonna? Yeah, okay, what's successful right now? Like, AI and YouTube. Okay, so we're gonna compete with YouTube and we're gonna do AI stuff. Good luck. Nobody.
No, it does
what
seem a little
BuzzFeed
Mad
is.
Libs, and I think if you were like, to your point, Troy, like I think BuzzFeed does deserve some amount of, not like some amount, a lot of credit for being early to a lot of trends, being like, I think it's a frustrating legacy for BuzzFeed and honestly for Jonah too, because you can squint, you can see, yeah, they kind of had different pieces. They were early to a lot of different things.
Right.
If anything, they fell prey to the peanut butter problem, where they spread themselves so thin and they didn't seem to like commit to one direction. They didn't,
guys. So imagine again. I hate to be the guy to try to imagine the other side of something, which I think is now my role in this podcast.
That is.
But imagine that Byron Allen is a shameless IP exploiter, right? Byron Allen has very, very old school television assets. Now you're going to see BuzzFeed celebrity programming that'll be syndicated everywhere. You're going to see BuzzFeed fast channels. You're going to see BuzzFeed segments on any of the, broadcast assets that he owns. You're going to see an opportunity. He sees an opportunity to grab a brand that appeals to a younger audience. You're going to see Jonah unencumbered by running this terrible company go and try to invent cool new things. And, Alex is entirely dismissive of that. I'd suggest that Jonah actually has a history of making interesting projects, and he's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
So
Jonah
let's see
is
what
smart
he can do.
and very creative. I've talked to a lot of media executives in my career, and I've talked to a lot
Jonah's
of
a total
empty suits.
standout.
But he's
Total.
very smart.
Very clever. So now you've got the cash flow from this old media thing. You've got a new brand that you can exploit in 30 different ways, and you've got a chance to try to kind of be a different video first company. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, who's also smart is, the guy who runs Snap. Like people were smart.
Right, he's
like
just
that.
miscast, and I think that's why a lot of people
just do
want to
something
see
else.
Evan
Do something
Spiegel
else.
unencumbered with running a publicly traded company, and like he was early. He's clearly has a good sense of like
He has a
what
good
is
sense for
appealing from a
product.
product.
Yeah, he has a good. Do something else like that. I think like moving into this new era, like with any baggage, is always a mistake. So shedding all that stuff can only be good. So agree.
Okay, that's great. Now, great segment.
Just
Great
one
segment.
thing that he might, so because this is a public, now Byron controls it. He does have other assets that he might push into it. So he owns the Weather Channel, like the TV side of the Weather Channel, not the .com. And so there are other things where maybe instead of paying down the debt, he just pushes other assets into this publicly traded vehicle.
I think a good counterpoint to where we are now, it actually happened this week, because we're talking about these are like pennies on the dollar. I mean, this is like going to the yard sale, right?
I mean, he did take a run at Paramount. It was either Paramount or BuzzFeed, so it's kind of funny.
Right. But then you look at like what Apollo is doing. And Apollo is I think it was a $1.5 billion deal for Emerald. And then they're shoving it together with QuestX. These are old school B2B trade show assets. That's where the money is, right? Like it's not in creating these little viral things like on the internet. The money is on trade show, drages, all kinds of different things. At the end of a trade show, the exhibitors line up to sign their contract for the next year. Way better. It's way better to create a marketplace than to try to create little viral doodads.
There's something about Hacky Sack, Brian, that is a story of our time.
Yeah, so Hacky Sack is apparently back. I'm not ready for a lot of this 1990s ephemera to come back. And I also, I react with some skepticism to fake trend stories. But apparently Hacky Sack is back. What else should we
But
think about bringing
it's
back?
everything you guys have been talking about, right? It's people getting together serendipitously, right? It's not really a competitive thing. You're just hanging out with your buddies. It's kind of pointless, right? Your shared physical space, casual belonging. Hacky Sack is a 90s thing that needs to be, reconsidered.
You can smoke while you're doing it?
You can do whatever. You can be super high and play hacky sack. In fact, they go together, right?
Yeah,
So
that's true.
all modern experiences, what are they that you guys are lamenting? They're optimized, they're efficient, they're hyper-personalized, they're, algorithmic, and they're solitary. Now, what is hacky sack? It's a bunch of stoned people getting together in a circle, hanging out and kicking a little beanbag. It's perfect, right? And what's next?
Devil
Well,
sticks.
rollerblading, malls,
Rollerblading never went away.
raves.
man.
Alex loves a rave. Punk rock, yo-yos. Yo-yos are coming.
Yo-yos are
Yo-yos
coming.
are pretty 80s.
Old electronic devices. My niece is walking around with like a fucking, old school Nikon digital camera. Wow.
Gravity balls, those things that you kind of went to the park. and-
Totally.
Yeah.
I was walking through, I guess it was the Lower East Side, and came across, I think this is a great idea for a business. It is renting out private pool hall. So you just rent it out. It's through an app, and it's got a refrigerator and a little, like, you bring your own drinks, or most likely not drinks, since apparently nobody's drinking anymore that's young. And you get together and you play pool. Because there's not a lot of bars that have pool tables anymore, which is also weird. I think we need to bring back bars with pool tables. And maybe this is just being in New York City. But
I
don't
think
see a lot of bars
actually-
with pool tables.
I'm going to stick my neck out. I think drinking is a good product, actually. I've been drinking a lot recently.
Yeah, we can tell, Troy. We, I noticed that I've turned into my
gummy,
habits
just
are
gummies,
very
really.
Alcoholic.
No, my habits are very millennial, like media consumption and I've stopped drinking alcohol, and I've had a couple of nights where I went out or there was a dinner and I've drank a little bit more than I used to, and felt awful in the morning. It's really hard to get back into it. It's terrible. There's so many.
What's your
better
limit?
ways.
What's your limit? Can you do a third? Can you do a fourth? What do you
Of what? Of a bottle of wine?
Alcohol. Like, what is your?
I don't know, man.
You got these
I'll have like
pills
half a-
before,
half-
Alex.
Yeah, we have those Korean pills. I don't know, man. I think a gummy is way better.
Gummies make me self-loathing. I don't like gummies.
It does make you
Keep trying gummies and I keep hating myself.
try work through it.
At least I feel
It's obviously telling you
emboldened.
something. It's obviously
So this
like, alcohol and cocaine makes you love yourself for being an asshole, and gummies makes you softer.
Yeah, and I'll take alcohol and cocaine over gummies any day.
So this tracking survey asked 12th graders, have you had any alcoholic beverage to drink more than just a few sips? Back when I was a 12th grader, it was 90%. And in my high school, it was 98%. Now, 47%. And as the longer this goes, and it actually accelerated the drop over the last 2 years, the longer this goes on, the more I'm beginning to think that this is actually a structural change. I do believe it will normalize, but there's no way it's going back to the 90%. And people get older and they continue habits. It's
habitual for sure.
It is habitual. So I think that's a major change. Even if it's replacing gummies are replacing it, and everyone needs a little self-loathing. So could be a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, maybe the most chaotic episode we've ever done.
I love
But
it.
I have a washer and dryer installed right now. I've got laundry that's been
You got to watch
piling
it.
up.
And I actually had to leave this bar, and because they started playing That's Amore. That's the thing about Italians. They don't know music. They just don't. You don't play that song. That's not a
They're
thing.
playing it for the Americans.
The Americans don't appreciate
Trey,
it.
I'll send you some good
Canadian.
Italian music. I have. I've got
Name one important Italian rock band.
Giovanni. Have you Mi Fido di Te is it's a banger. I'll send it to you. It's great.
Can you name any others?
Other than Giovanni, he's my
Gino
he's my
Vanelli?
favorite.
I mean, growing up in France, we were exposed to a lot of Italian music.
At least France has Daft Punk.
I mean, France has a lot, yeah.
So Giovanni is good. I like Riccardo Coccinetti. Very good. These are all like 80s. Roberto Vecchione. He's got a lot of bangers.
What about like
Luco
Maneskin,
Battisti?
who won Eurovision 2021? Hey, by the way, my good product, Eurovision. It's in Vienna. However, this year there's a lot of
Well, aren't the
controversy and
Israelis
boycott
being
because
accused
of
of
his.
cheating?
It wasn't
There's
illegal,
always
but
cheating.
they kind of really pressed on the scales, and I think it turned a lot of people off. It's the biggest cultural event in the world every year.
Absolutely. It's the gay World Cup.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love it, but some countries are boycotting, Ireland, Spain, and the Israel stuff is a bummer. So
Is Ireland boycotting? Man,
Yeah.
they got no time. It's very interesting how Irish culture is. So I think people sleep on how anti-colonialist Ireland is.
Yeah.
And it really impacts how they operate in the world.
yeah, man, yeah, they don't take shit.
But I think this is all like, you know what? Even the World Cup, like the World Cup has made so many errors. And I think it's a disaster that they put this thing in the United States now and Mexico. But I think once the games start, the World Cup will assume its rightful role. We need these things that allow people to have national pride in a very productive manner.
The World Cup
It's
has
good.
a long history of being all sorts of shitty. I mean, FIFA specifically. Even though I was so excited that the World Cup was coming and it was happening really close to where I live, and I can't afford any of those tickets. It's like they're impossible to
I
find.
thought
It's
you
insane.
said you were rich, man.
Yeah,
you
what's
say
the
I'm
point of
about?
being rich if you got to stay at home? I'm going to the bronze medal game in
At
Miami.
the Olympics,
No, at the World Cup.
the bronze medal.
Whatever
You
it
mean-
is, the runner-up game. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not a freaking soccer fan. What is it?
Yeah, wow, you got like a semifinal or something.
Yeah, it's like a big game.
How much did you spend on that?
So, do you want to know the honest truth?
Yeah, I want to know.
It's
the
part of a
honest
It's part of
Oh,
one
God
of my
damn it.
partnership activities.
truth. He
Look, I'm not. My friends like Raptive. We're going to the
different.
game. I'm leading a conversation ahead of the game. Like I was at a Moroccan restaurant last week because I am allowed.
When
to go
was the
on
last time you had a
vacations.
meal that wasn't corporate sponsored, Brian?
My breakfast was I paid for my breakfast because it was
Okay,
part
great.
of my activation today. And yesterday I had 2 monetized breakfasts. So I remember when I told Troy about my I was like, I don't know. I can't do so many of these dinners. He's like, you got to eat like at least every day. He was, pushing me monetize every meal. But yeah, no, it's going to be fun. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't go otherwise. I don't think I know, but I'm interested to see. I hope it is not going to be like I've never been to a Super Bowl, but I would never really want to go to a Super Bowl because it's so corporate and gross. And I worry that a lot of the World Cup will, because it's being done in an American manner, will become that way.
Yeah,
But just
although
to-
soccer, just structurally, soccer has less. The soccer game itself is like 2 halves of 45 minutes. There's not a lot of like stretching it out and fanfare and places to put
Well,
ads
I
in.
think that's going to change. There's going to be like a Ricky Martin concert at halftime.
Oh yeah, sure, that's fine. That's fine. It's all part of it.
Okay, but
All right, got
I
a
want
hard
to just,
stop.
I want to, Alex, before you hard stop this, I
Yeah.
want to just tie up this last conversation that left me feeling a little icky. And I
Icky?
just want to understand, after we kind of lionized Ryan Cohen for his Elon-esque kind of AI-powered tactics, the guy who doesn't take a salary, who made money the old-fashioned way and is now trying to take down, this big fat corporate eBay. Okay, you love this, right? But
No, wait,
you
we
think-
lionize. I think he's a psychopath. But go ahead.
Oh, maybe it was Brian that
Yeah,
felt
yeah.
strongly for him.
Well, no, I just found him noteworthy and interesting because
You think he's a psychopath? Listen, you think that the Democrats are going to put their arms around this kind of alienation caused by AI, and that it is there.
Yes.
If they do it right, they're going to win the election because of it.
I think it's the best lane for Democrats. Yeah, for sure.
I think they need a little bit more than that. Honestly, I have no idea.
They need more than that.
They can't keep pussyfooting with the capital class and pretend to be on the side of the workers. And the majority of the electorate you cannot have a left political party that is not rooted in the working class. That's what I think. And they got away from that. And the Labour Party got away from that in the UK. Look at where the Labour Party is now. It's in the toilet. Democrats
and
are in
with
the
that-
toilet here.
And with that, we started as a political show. We're ending as a political show. Vote for Troy Young for Congress.
Yes.
He'll build more housing.
Yeah, he's got a lot of policies.
That's it for this episode of People versus Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. Love you both. Bye.
Bye.
See you.